What's going on, everybody? It's me, RDV. I'm here with Rob Zod.
Yeah, obviously, where my allegiances lie.
I like both films. I said it. But
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, of course, I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. We're on the high tornado alert, so if something weird happens tonight, RDV will command the station here, too. Of course, I had to consult with Max and Daisy, my German Shepherd Czechoslovakian short-haired Reds, that patrol the grounds here at the Pinos Palace to kind of keep me safe and all that, but they're actually indoors now because of the storm. And somebody's not having a storm is you, RDV, but one thing that I hope gets a little hot here in a moment is we were talking about some things that we've done here for the couple years we've been on the Xtreme Movie Show and what to do differently. And we thought, one of the things that seems to be really popular with a lot of our listeners is when we get into debates about the best of this. And you and I generally don't get into the schlocky kind of stuff with the fake expressions and all that kind of nonsense. And, you must do this or the 5 things you need to know or any of that stupid ass copycat bullshit.
Yeah, Tom thinks, I hate that. It was Movie Mojo. Go for that. Everyone else has copied them.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Well, what we're doing is we're kind of revisiting some stuff we started off when we launched the channel 4 or 5 years ago. And so we're looking at our top 10s of movies. So this coming Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be doing top 10 films from 1980 that you, me, and the young 20-something Professor Pixel come up with. So we thought, what's the way to kind of get people juiced up for that rather than just announce it? We said, hey, we'll do a preview. We'll pick 2 really good films from that particular year, in this case 1980, put them head to head and see what we really like about them, what we don't, and try to see if us and the audience can decide which one is the better film. And tonight's 2 films, of course, are some of the most massive and still great films of the time. Empire Strikes Back, of course, the second film in that series, and of course a sequel as well here in Superman 2, both according to, like, Maranya, she already wrote when we were starting about things being set up. I think they're very mature writing, and it's one of the few times, RDV, in my opinion, that you've got sequels that are better than the original. Some might argue Rocky 2 a little bit. It's close, I'm not sure, but I think that's definitely true for these 2. What's your initial take on these films before we dive in?
Superman 2, like I said, it's a movie I've loved. There are 2 endings for this, which that's another debate for which is better, theatrical, and then there's the Donner cut. Then, like I said, we have Empire Strikes Back. I was trying to remember the other day. I was like, what is this? Oh, this is the Hoth episode. Pretty much setting up for our Return of the Jedi and everything. Both are, I would say Empire Strikes Back, for going off right away. Empire Strikes Back is a main plot device for setting up. Not only is it fun, but it also sets up for the 3rd movie and the climax of the story. The original trilogy, the only trilogy there is. I don't care anybody else likes the prequels of crap.
Agreed.
This is the Han Solo trilogy. It's Luke Skywalker. That's fun. But I always remember Superman 2 because it's just more hokey, more fun. Christopher Reeve has that magic, which he also captured in the first one, and maybe because they filmed them back to back, maybe they that's why they shared some of that magic in the first one. This is the one where he basically takes away his powers, and so he can be
for
with
a woman. First mistake.
For Margaret Kidder, bro. Are you kidding me? No. This was before the Richard Pryor. So it's funny you bring up the sequels. Like, if we were talking about the 3rd one, I'm like, the 3rd one has the junkyard seat and that's it. But we're talking about this one with Zod, Kneel Before Zod, just him, the whole diner scene. I love that. Both are fantastic films. Both deserve the praise that they get. Both have huge followings, especially Star Wars, more so than Superman. But Christopher Reeve has his own following as himself, as for just being Superman in the very first movie. So that being said, what are your thoughts on these movies, Rob?
Superman 2, I remember it more than the first one. I like them both.
You watched these in theaters, right?
Absolutely. I think I watched the first one actually in a drive-in, believe it or not.
Nice.
Yeah, it was, because to see, nothing beats that huge screen outside.
Yep.
It's one of those things where I haven't seen either of them in a really long time, just bits and pieces when they're on. So you almost forget when you watch a movie and you just go, damn, that was a really good movie, and how good it was at the time you watched it. Superman 2, I just think great acting, and we'll get to the negatives here in a little bit, and we'll do one film at a time. But for Empire, for me, I remember being a bit more of a mature movie. Like, of course, when you see the first Star Wars, you're like, okay, what's going on here and this and that. And there's an argument that it could be a bit slow or boring. Honestly, the way it's written is almost kind of like a Western in a way too. And it's what
Hmm.
we would call in literature terms for you nerds out there, the hero's journey. And Luke is supposed to be the main one of that. And it's very Joseph Campbell-ish, which a lot of storytelling is. And I have no problem with it. I like it. It's kind of simple storytelling. So it's really more about execution. But there's something where it just seems like everything seems to click well here in Empire Strikes Back in the second film. I like it a lot more than even the third. I think it's by far the best Star Wars movie there is.
And
But let's
correct
talk.
me.
Well,
I
go
was
ahead.
just I was just click me. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the score is both done by John Williams, right?
Without doing any research off the top of my head, I would say sure. What the hell, I
Because
mean,
I know he did a lot of work for Lucas. I mean, I imagine he did work. He did work for Superman as well. Uh,
he just did the national championship football game, believe it or not, and people went ape shit over that when it was trending. Go blue. Seriously.
yeah, but yeah, this is like I said. These have some quirky moments. I remember Hoth is a giant battle of Hoth. First, Empire Strikes Back. So I remember that the giant ATT walkers. Where now I'm gonna get flack for this because I'm not a really big nerd on what as far as what the specific things are called. I know there's the ATT or AT&T, whatever. I don't know. AT-CAT.
Something Walkers or
Yeah,
whatever it
but
was. Yeah.
the big mechaniques as Jar Jar Binks, loved by all Star Wars fans, would say, is those they look like dogs. They're walking on four legs, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
they got the lance or the I forgot, not land speeders. I forgot the call, but they're not X-wings, but they're kind of similar. But they got to trip them, knock them over. You got all this cool stuff, and all that done is like all the special effects are just amazing on this. Not only that, you have the laser guns, laser rifles, all that stuff, the pulse rifles.
Pew
I
pew
love
pew
that.
pew pew.
I know, so
I never liked laser guns. No,
so
Buck Rogers, did it the best, maybe. Well,
yeah,
Empire Strikes Back. Let's get into that. Let's talk
yeah.
about what we really really like about it, and then we'll tear it a little bit of an asshole too, and find out what's wrong with it here. What is it that you like the most about Empire?
Oh, like I said, to me, it's the snow fighting scenes of that movie. I like you can see the giant abominable snowman from Rudolph that he has
The guy,
basically
the one
like
with the bad tooth.
yeah he fights against him. Luke Skywalker is obviously separated, and then he's like getting ready to freeze to death. He does the one thing that is the most badass still today. Slices open his horse, which has died, crawls inside it, and it's all gooey.
Seriously, I remember that as a kid, and I was like, oh, he killed her or died or whatever. Oh, he's got to save himself. I did think that was pretty damn cool.
Oh, it's like because I can't think of another movie where anybody's done that where they just gut their animal crawl inside it like that. Usually they find a fire or whatever. So I was like, that was kind of cool when they find them. As I said, just the special effects on this, the music. Uh, it's one of my favorite movies, and it is a good sequel, as we said. Um, more the Han Solo, let's say Lois Lane, Princess Leia romance, pretty much was also good too. And romance is done well if it's done in the right amount. It was a side story between two characters falling in love. It was kind of weird seeing how we had the brother, and sister, But at the time, I don't think we knew in this movie if they knew their brother and sister. Can't remember.
I'll save that for things I don't like. In this movie, what I really liked is, like I say, it's a bit more mature, it's a bit more adult-like.
Yeah.
It's not okay. He's no longer a bumbling teenager sitting at home. Now he's a young man. He's got to make his way into the world. I mean, that's the big takeaway here, right?
Yes.
He's got to go. He's got to go out, and it's his own journey. He has to figure out what the hell's going on, but he needs guidance along the way. And so you have all these competing interests pulling him in both directions, literally and figuratively. And so, at the greatest time that there's this big crisis, he goes off on his own path and he makes his own way. So instead of letting life happen, to him, he's trying to do something about making life happen for him. And so I really liked as a kid watching him meet up with Yoda, do the training, all that kind of stuff. The Force is just kind of lame to me. Generally speaking, it's an easy riding device. Yeah. I'm not saying this is a negative thing here, but again, we don't really care what the real reason why Michael Myers is bad. We just know he's an ass-kicking SOB. Get the hell out of his way, and that's what makes the first
Right.
movie work. And so in here, I think it's a nice little plot device. For me, also what works here really good with Empire Strikes Back is, yes, it's a tight film. The score is good. It looks good. It's something that at the time, there was very little movies out there. And you and I have talked about this before here on Extreme Movie Show, that fantasy is very hit or miss, and some good stuff never made money, some schlocky stuff did, but even Flash and Gordon was a huge hit at the time, a lot of fun to watch visually. But there was, like I say, a more of an adult theme here to it. And you realize that, oh, there's somebody above Darth Vader who's really he's like the mini boss.
Yeah.
Here you are thinking that Odd Job is like the bad villain, and you realize, no, there's somebody else behind it, right? I mean, so you're like, oh, the layers of intrigue with what's happening goes against it. And one thing I always thought that the movie did well, and it's been a while since I've watched it, there's this feeling of not dread, because it's not that dark, but you got the feeling, of course, very obviously it was good guys versus bad guys. And how are the good guys, how do they have a chance? And revenge stories are one thing, and what that means. I don't look at this as like that. I look at this as more of you have to really bust your ass, pay a heavy price on something before you have that resolution at the end, which is really what the whole trilogy is about, not just the individual film. And there's definitely loss along the way and growth, which you see in characters, which I think you don't get a lot. So even though I'm not crazy about the romance going there, I understand it. It makes sense. I think without it would be ignoring the human element to it. And even R2-D2 and C-3PO, as mildly annoying as they can be, they serve their purpose, and they're not completely horrible.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they always want to have these friggin' sidekicks in there, and of course it's merchandising and all that too, because Star Wars was so fucking big. But by the time this came out, everybody was going apeshit.
But unlike Jar Jar Binks, I thought they brought the correct amount of humor.
You have to have it in small doses. It's like violence; it can be wildly effective, and if you overdo it, it loses its effect. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree.
It wasn't they were the side characters. Actually, R2-D2 actually served a purpose. He actually did stuff for them. Especially, I think it was the first movie. No, actually, no. I'm trying to think. The junkyard scene, is it this movie or is that the third movie? It's one of the.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of the Empire as a trilogy.
I know. It's like I'm not gonna claim to be the biggest fan, but like you said, throughout the trilogies, R2-D2 has been really helpful. C-3PO just kind of complains, "Oh, where is this?" and all and stuff. He's kind of the guy who would just switch sides to preserve himself. But like I said, I do like the fact that they gave you had a small amount of humor in here. It wasn't really forced like it was with Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace was cool to see Liam Neeson until he was killed in 5 seconds.
Well, you also get in here, you get Han Solo. You basically see him going, hey, I might be cute and I might be slick and I may be, walking on a thin line, not doing the right stuff, which, as a young kid, you're like, you got to do the right thing. That's discipline, doing the right thing even when you don't want to, and knowing what it is and all that stuff. But basically, he has to pay the piper in here. And you kind of understand it as a kid. You don't like it. It makes you feel a little sad because you like him, but you realize, yeah, you kind of fucked up, bro. And the whole thing of him getting frozen and all that whole scene there at the end when Vader comes out and they're getting ready to have their fight and all that, I'm like, that's been pretty badass. I like that scene. That's my favorite scene out of the whole movie. And that's even before the very end part where, he does the I am your father stuff, which is like the big reveal, right? You didn't have big reveals like this a lot of times. Now you get them all the time, stupid ass twists. But here, no, I'm telling you, at the time, I swear to God, the older people who have seen it, tell me if your experience is different. Nobody saw that coming. I am your father.
The only movie to ever trump that was Spaceballs.
That doesn't count.
I know.
It doesn't count.
Brothers, cousins, sister, roommate. No, but yeah, I get to see Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford just steals the scene, no matter what scene he's in. He has that charisma. At this point, for me personally, going through the movies, I hated Luke Skywalker. I thought he was annoying.
I thought he was a putz.
Yeah, and it's a guy who's gonna save the universe. It's like, are you kidding me? He needs pretty much Han Solo to taxi him around the universe. And anytime they're in the Millennium Falcon, Chewie interaction with Chewie and Han is just always fun. You know,
Yeah.
especially when like he's being chewed out by Chewbacca.
Well, let me say one more thing I like about it. Then we'll beat up on it a little bit here. As a kid, I remember one of the first movies I ever saw was the original Rocky, and of course Rocky 2 and the whole series and all that.
Yeah.
So I was always captivated because Rocky was just Rocky, but you get this handsome, athletic, beautiful guy come on a screen talking a bunch of shit. And I didn't know who Muhammad Ali was at the time as a kid. And
Hmm.
Apollo Creed, I was like, holy crap! He popped off the screen to me. And in here, I thought, okay, here's a smooth R&B kind of guy, and uh, by the Colt 45 guy, and he ends up being somebody you kind of almost don't know if you trust him. He's Han Solo's buddy, and then he kind of comes back, and then he ends up being a more important figure as the story goes on. I think that was a good way to introduce him too, and I really like how at the end, when they go and they save Luke, you get the sense of, okay, shit's totally different now. It's even
Hmm.
worse than the way this film started. We don't know what that was going to happen, and then they ended on that note. I'm like, that's cool, because that sets you up for the third film, A New Hope or whatever. Because I'm telling you, at the time, nobody called it that or whatever.
No, it's just called
For
Star
some reason,
Wars.
20 years ago, or 20 years later, is when people would start saying that. And I'm like, okay, that's not what they called it then before. It's just basically like re-imaging it.
It's I think the whole New Hope thing. Correct me, I'm probably wrong about this, I don't, but I'm speculating here. Bear with me. Is when they decided to bring in the prequels. They decided to, well, we got to call it individual movies. We can't just call it
Right.
Star Wars. Be
Right.
confusing because it's all Star Wars now. It's like, I know, it's like, no, I call it's Star Wars. Then you have Chapter 2 and Chapter 3.
Yeah,
Pretty
knockoff
much.
1, knockoff 2.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Anything else you want to talk about that you liked about this?
like I said, it through and through, there was none of this forced dumb down the guys to make the chick look better. Princess Leia was tough on her own.
Yeah.
Sure,
Smart,
it was an equal amount of basically like fighting going around, the comedy, the music, the constant pew 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 pew.
Finger guns.
Yeah, I love it. It was just fun. Like I said, it ties in the whole trilogy together, and unlike Lord of the Rings, it's watchable.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what we don't like or what we think sucks about Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, okay. The
In no
fact that
particular order.
the fact that I would say that that we had they decided to redub this as saying 4, 5, and 6, for these movies. But as far as the whole standalone movie, it was Luke. Luke is the weakest point in this. And he's kind of there, and I just don't understand, like, maybe it was the dialogue or whatever. Maybe they should have let Mark Hamill do some more of his own ad-libbing, but he just came off so like annoying, and I honestly, that's what drags it down for me the most. It's not even the runtime run, because I can go this and I'm just like, okay, I know what's coming on. When we see Vader, just anytime you have Millennium Falcon, that's awesome. But yeah, I said, like, it's just Luke is the weakest link for me. I can't really think of a bad plot on this. I mean, the hot thing was cool and stuff, but like they move too dang slow. Like you'd think they would be such a menace, and like the Empire. If you put logic to it, it's like the Empire. Really, you're gonna go with these? It's like I understand they're building a death ray, but still, it's like it's but we get to see Yoda in the third movie, I believe. So we get to see Yoda at the end, and or no.
You assume in this one, this is the
actually right. This is Yoda.
Yeah.
See, these movies, I haven't seen this movie in about a couple of years. So because for me, they run together. The Return of the Jedi on this. Always, I'm like, I'm trying to remember where the dividing line is. This is the Yoda, and that's just fun too. Yoda's a little creepy. He's like Biden clicking to his back, sniffing him. But other than that, it's a good movie. But I know people are gonna be like, how do you not remember all these things and stuff? And be like, bro, chill
fuck
out.
off. Yeah. I mean, come on. Well, the thing too is again, it's a movie that's very old, right? So we're talking about having not seen it in a while, and so all the people that might be super fans of all that stuff there are a lot younger, and it's fresher in their minds too.
As we said, you guys decide.
Yeah, I mean
which is better.
that's why we're putting him under
You
here.
know,
I mean we're
yeah.
beating up on everything here.
I'm
I
sure the
agree
same
with
time
you.
mixed. Yeah.
I agree with you totally. He's the weakest link to me about it, and I understand he's supposed to basically be Joe Average, and it's the classic tale of, a lot of people like to, suck Hitchcock a dick and say, well, we like to show the everyman guy getting caught in unbelievable
Eh,
circumstances and show you what's going on. And they don't know, so you have the tension and they don't. And I'm like, whatever, shut up, stop, hero worshiping and all
yeah.
that. I mean, tell me what you like, but something about Luke just rubs me the wrong way. I don't hate him, but he's just whiny and
I
annoying. And it's like I don't even want to slap you. I just want to shake you a little bit and go. Shh.
so-
It's like he's that dog that's really annoying, and you Caesar Mon to go and go. Because I always hated everybody doing that, and for
ankle
years, just
biters.
walking, around here in Pine Hills, everybody's doing out their dog. I'm like, oh my god, you don't even know what the hell you're doing. You're just repeating something. It reminds me of that, right? It's
I
very
would have been.
distracting.
What they should have done. This made is like a Canon Films group, production, and got actual Michael Dudikoff, who's actually less annoying. But he was a nobody, at this point. They hired him on. Harrison Ford was the big star. I don't think Carrie Fisher done some. I don't think she's done stuff before this, but I know James Earl Jones had.
Oh
Was
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah. So like they were like the big trifecta pretty much in this. But as far as like Mark Hamill, like I honestly I don't think he excelled at being anything until he became the voice of the Joker in a Batman series.
And it's hard for me to argue that too. Sometimes you do stuff or you're in really great things, but you really hit your spot later on. Liam Neeson's been in a lot of stuff. I remember him in the
Rob
Bounty in
Loy,
the early '80s. Well, I mean, Darkman, people
yeah,
knew him, but he
yeah.
wasn't a thing until much
No,
later. And good for
Taken
him.
is Taken was going to take on.
That's what he's going to go to the grave with, I think.
I
The
think
one last
Taken.
thing I'm going to say, they say that I don't like about Empire Strikes Back, and it's not Empire's fault, but Star Wars is such a big hit, so different. Of course, everybody tried to copy it. Um, I'm a huge mark for James Bond films, even though the last 10 or so suck generally overall, especially the Craig ones. But I love, love, love Moonraker. And everyone says it's cheesy, it's campy, it's bullshit. It's
It's
James
Nazis in
Bond in
space.
space. Well, that's what it is, because it was so popular. And then disco is a thing, and
Yeah.
people are going, what the fuck with disco music? And James Bond's not what it should be. And I understand all that. But there's something about Moonraker that when you get it, you're like, it's so fun. Empire's not a fun film. And I like that about it, that it's not a fun film. But what makes it bad is all of a sudden it sets it as bar with the first film. You're like, well, how can you compete with Star Wars? And I think they did it the right way. They got pretty mature
Yep.
about it, to Marania's point in there, with the complexity of the relationships and everything else there too. And they
Mhm.
make it a superior film than Superman 2. However, what's better isn't always necessarily what's more fun. And we're going to have to revisit that thought here in a moment, because we're going to jump into Superman 2. Take it away with what you like.
Oh, Superman 2. Just from all the actors in here. I forgot what his name is. Jackie something or Jax. Plays Perry White in here. It's phenomenal. Billy, James Olsen. You got Margaret Kidder, Lois Lane, who's kind of like she's pretty much they brought the Silver Age to life on screen. Like I said, this is also the second movie, which they filmed back to back with the first one. So I feel like the magic is still there compared with the first one. The first one will always give me chills, but the second one here, getting to see Zod, Ursula, and then the other silent guy. But I mean, so when they and then you also have Gene Hackman, the greatest criminal mind ever. There's Lex Luthor.
Tremendous. Everybody loves Gene Hackman.
I know.
They've been saying that for 40 years. That guy's just so good.
Yeah, the whole thing is like when they the little floating crystal coming, and then they get out of the Phantom Zone, and they're like, what is this shit? And they're on they like water, like, oh, I'm floating and stuff, and like when they're first getting their powers odds up, and then they go, they're like, and they they basically meet with Lex Luthor and battle Superman, but Superman realizes that he's just going to destroy the city and stuff. So ultimately, he kind of surrenders. But at this point, though, he pretty much had already been thinking about stop being Superman so he could be with Lois. So he devised a way to take away his powers, and I love how he uses that to trick them at the end by basically like, oh yeah, I'll go in, I'll get rid of my powers, and I'll go in there. But instead, he restores his powers by zapping their powers away, And the Lois punches one of the guys in the face, knock her in the trench. The other guy goes to jump and he goes, oh, and that's the guy, the big silent guy, is from the Chuck Norris movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I can't think of the name because he's like, oh, he looks like a somebody.
yeah.
He's your meathead guy in the back.
Yeah, it's the only thing is like, Zod, I wish you had better clothing. What the hell you're wearing? It's like you're wearing Sigourney Weaver wore that in Ghostbusters. later on, it's like, I don't know if it was inspired from that, but it's like looks like you're wearing a woman's blouse or something, like, or just tunic, like it's like a bad version of the Sith Jedi's or anti-Jedi Sith, and it was kind of weird, but like I said, it was cool to see Superman, the diner scene, and that scene always blows me away. Is that he goes up there and the guy, after Clark loses powers, he sticks up for Lois at the trucker, and he gets gets knocked down. And then when he goes back, he's basically like, he just, I can't remember how he was. He just I think he blows the guy, but not in that sense, you bastards, but in a sense, he just uses super breath and knocks the guy back, and then the guy punches him, hurts his hand. It's just fun. Like it's like the little guy getting a little bit of revenge on the bully,
I tell you, the action scenes in here, you can call them dated and whatever and all that, and maybe the effects aren't so special or whatever. I think special effects, it's not necessarily, that they're supposed to look great or perfect or realistic. When we've talked about it before, I always talk how shitty comic book movies are with their CGI, because everything's a green screen. There's a depth issue that's really phony. It doesn't seem to accentuate anything that moves the scene along or makes it more important for the most part, and there's such a stark contrast between the person that's being filmed or whatever is happening and the bullshit in the background, that since there's this huge difference, you notice it rather than it just being slightly different. And so even though when you go back and you watch Superman 2 in the action scenes, okay, this is a set piece, this might be a model or whatever, there's not such a discrepancy there between the two that allows you to do what you're supposed to be doing if it's being done right as a viewer, and that is focus on what's going on in the scene. And so to me, I think as a kid, I just thought this movie was a lot of fun. I agree with you totally on it. And all the scenes, that are done well, he realizes that, when he gets his butt beat by the guy that's hitting on Lois, or when he goes back at the end, I am telling you, this movie probably up there with Rocky was the movie that people cheered the most that I ever saw in, because there was the couple scenes there. There's him, hey, I've been working out, beating up the dude and all that. And we know it's not, we're going to beat your ass, we're going to stomp on your head or like that. I'm just going to rough you up a little bit, the old school style, not a big deal. But then when he kneels and he, takes Zod's hand in there, and then he starts crushing it slowly, I swear to God, everybody went effing ape shit in the theater, just because they know what's coming, right? And it's like, that's that whole buildup that we talk about, where you don't have to do 50 million things and all that. Just set it up, let it simmer, and then just take it out at the right time, rest it, and then boom, take that bite, and you're done. And that's all you need to do. But I'll tell you another thing that makes this movie really, really great. Obviously, I can't say enough about when I think of Superman, I think of him. He's got that all shucksness. He's got that innocence. He's got that kind of whatever.
Is Clark Kent.
He is so good. I mean, and obviously he's a big strapping guy. I mean, he was probably 220, I'm guessing, for the role. I don't know, maybe 6'3", legitimately.
6'3", yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he had a nice build on him as far as well.
Yeah, and it's not it's a build that is not distracting, where a kid that's 5'10", 150 and wants to get like 6% body fat and show his abs when he's really starving, nobody gives a shit about that, although he thinks it's impressive. He's got a body you don't look at and go, like The Rock, who does in all his movies, you go, Rock, I just want to see you have a heart attack on the big screen, because you're in fucking everything, and you're gonna die. His body doesn't take away where you're like looking at his body rather than watching him. You still focus on his face, those stupid glasses, and that clean shaven thing. Exactly. That's the beauty of it. And he's still a big fucker.
Like I said, when Henry Cavill came in on the scene, the guy worked out. The guy had to say a similar build. Maybe he's a little slightly bigger. Yeah. But the only thing they killed for his movie is the fact they didn't let him have his own movie. He was basically, he had his first one, Man of Steel, but it was a darker version. Everybody already loves Christopher Reeves when they want to do him a little more serious. And I was just like, but you got to make him very positive. You got to make him overall. He's the hope. So he's going to be the Boy Scout. He's going to be the, great Scott, G. Willikers, he's going to be the cokey guy. Yes. So when they gave him the dark costume for that, I don't like, man, that's what Johnny did for me. Man of Steel was like, and then having him break Zod's neck at the end. This was kind of hokey too, in a sense, but this is Silver Age. Silver Age, Superman in the comic books, he could do anything, he was, pretty much that OP'd. And they knew it because it was aimed towards kids, young kids.
Yeah.
Is where they started getting serious. But like at the end, he kisses Lois and she magically forgets. Or you have the Donner cut, I believe, is where he goes back in time and reverse everything, undoes the whole entire plot of the movie. You see basically that's Zod and then yeah. I like both for different reasons. But you see Zod and them and the gang get thrown back inside the floating Superman symbol crystal, and then they float back into deep space. But Jackie Cooper was the name I was trying to think of before. He plays Perry White. Phenomenal actor. And Marania brought up what was her name? Sarah Douglas was Ursa, and Jack Halloran. But I'm
going to say something that might be a bit controversial, and I certainly don't mean it in a negative way, because I mean this is a complete positive about Margaret.
We all know you're negative on this channel. I'm the light.
Go fuck yourself.
Here's odd.
Yeah, I like the fact. I really honestly like the fact that growing up, obviously my first media crush was Miss Xanadu, Miss Magic, Olivia Newton-John, right? Mm-hmm. So I was used to these, bright-eyed blondes and all that stuff too, and that was the thing in the 70s too. And of course, it became Rachel Ward pretty soon after that, several years later. But when I saw Margot Kidder here, and I'm like, she's not ugly.
Oh,
she's not hot. She obviously looks like a woman. She's a chain smoker, and I guess the character never was, but licensing in the 70s and all that. She seemed like an adult female, and I really liked how she was very firm about, she's got that curious nature about her where the whole Niagara Falls thing, she's trying to prove that he's Superman to him, and she's doing it in a playful way. And so we would tell the young 20-something Professor Pixel that in this case, that's flirting, right? And of course they, find out and that they are, and that's kind of the whole sense of the story. What I did not see a lot when I was younger, and I like it a lot more as we're getting older, is I like the fact that the ending, even though he kisses her and makes her forget, it's very bittersweet in a way. It's not all, shits and giggles and all that too, even with the working out kind of scene of beating the dude up and all that, excuse me, sir, would you like to step outside? That kind of thing. I mean, it's really cute, right? But it's kind of dark in a way, which I liked much better than the flying around in the first movie and all that. And the other thing with that too is, and I'm going to say this, and this might be controversial to some, and I do not know, like you guys might know over on the Geeky Puppet Show where you talk, comics and all sorts of stuff. I really do not know what Superman was supposed to represent back in the 40s or 50s when it came up, but it is so obvious when you watch this film. You know what? He's the best. He's America distilled into one. Everything that you could put into one human being, and that's it. And putting the flag back on there. I'll never desert you again, Mr. President, or whatever like that. I mean, it's not Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians. It's none of that stuff. It's just fuck you. We're American. We're the best on the planet. We're going to kick your ass. I don't care if there's three of you. And I don't care if you represent, China, Russia, or, India, or whatever the big threats might have been at the time, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. And so there was this Americanism thing too. Because also, don't forget, in 1976, you had the bicentennial, the 200 years. That was a big deal. And that was around for a long time. So this is only a few years after that. We've talked about patriotism in the 80s movies and how after about 89, it just doesn't exist anymore. Definitely a part of this film. So a lot to really like about this. And if you notice, I'm not saying they're bad at all, but I said nothing about the three bad guys because they're incidental to the film. It's really about everything when they're not on screen, even though Zod is tremendous. There's so much to like about this film.
Yes, and clearly, as you see, they're not really much on the screen, whereas the Man of Steel version, they were constantly on screen. There was a lot more destruction, a lot more death, a lot of stuff. It's like, so they kind of held it back. So it's keeping in line with the Silver Age, and it's honestly that works. Now for people who like more of adult serious book, or Superman, then you'd go with Man of Steel, which is a darker version, which a lot of people like, and there's a lot of people who don't like that. I've never met anybody who hated Christopher Reeve Superman. I hear people the jokes about the Richard Pryor stuff. I can sympathize with that. Some of that was cringe,
Right.
but there were still good parts in some of those movies. It
Well,
was
let me ask you this, though.
his quest for peace. Everybody agrees it sucks.
Right. I never watched Smallville or wherever the show was that he was in,
Yeah.
and I think I might have seen some of the movies because I know he's in a shit ton
Mhm.
of them. But I forget the actor's name,
Tom Welling.
Michael Shannon or something, or whoever plays
Oh.
Zod, I guess, in whatever movie it is.
Oh.
When I look at the Zod in this one, I feel
Okay.
like he's under control without being,
Yep.
a stuffy Brit with a thumb up his ass. And I feel like he's the best portrayal of being in command of himself, even though he's supposed to be a bad guy. When I see, villains later, villains try so hard, it seems like, to be louder or to be menacing or to have this pouty looking face. I'm like, bro, if you're the fucking man, you wouldn't be trying to act so damn hard
Yeah.
and tough. It's like fake tough to me. And so not really
Sure.
being familiar with Henry Cavill's version of it and everything else going on. I don't know how or why that may have changed. Or maybe they said, I'm just going to change up my own spin on Zod. But I mean, today people still, I think Zod, how well he did it overshadows almost all the characters.
I think the reason why they changed Zod in the Man of Steel movie with Henry Cavill is basically the fact that they were going off the more modern Supermans with Zod, where Zod, he's a general. He knows how to fight. He obviously killed before, where in this movie, he's kind of like, a bad guy in a sense, just like, Sylvester, or I would say more like the cartoon bad guys. They're for kids, they're bad, but you don't see them commit any heinous acts. Maybe they're selfish and that's it, but you don't see anybody murdered in this, and it works for this. Obviously,
and there's almost a no kill thing going on in here too, because I don't think Superman kills anybody. And if you notice, the criminals, when you see them with the when they're getting banished or whatever, and then they get put in there, I thought it was kind of cool looking. But obviously, they have basically no kill policy themselves. So some people might argue, oh, that's a anti-death penalty view or whatever, and that's a sneaky way to be progressive about it. I mean, it's obvious that they try really hard not to. Of course, forget the physics of it, and how much destruction there would be, and how much damage there would be. It's fun to watch. It really is great. We spent a lot of time talking about how great it is. So now we've got to flip that coin and go, all right, let's get to the negative.
You're also doing this.
About this.
You're also doing this movie right around or right after the we had the Adam West TV show, the Batman, same lighthearted comedy. Like this, it wasn't like super I'd say mature or R-rated, stuff. Even though you look at what's her name's behind in that costume, not Eartha Kitt, Julie Andrews. But anyway, she was they got rid of her because of that. I'm assuming because that's all anyone was looking at. Anyway, but no, Zod here he was kind of like, he didn't seem like a general. He just seemed like, I'm a king. Go do your things, and then I'll, he was arrogant, but he wasn't like a physical general. He was the guy who just calls the shots, general. And and so for me, it made him more the weaker Zod in that sense.
Right.
I mean, Terrence Stamp is a good actor, but Michael Shannon, it was pretty much the better Zod, in my opinion. And then. For movies going, but if you wanted to see Krypton, even though they were swapped, I thought that Zod was actually really, really great. But keeping back to this, for this movie, Zod was a weaker link. Like I said, him and Ursa and the other guy, they weren't really that much of a threat. They're only a threat because Christopher Reeve made you believe they were. Everyone else around them.
You know what? And that's what you got to do as a babyface, right? You got to sell good.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, right?
Yeah.
You have to get your ass beaten and get the. Well, I mean, he's not a tag team, so he can't get the hot tag, but he's got to fire up at the end and finish it, and he does right at the end. I mean, it's great. It's like that's the pay-per-view. Set it all up. Take my money.
And I think the reason they went with the Donner cut is so that because the no kill thing, because Superman doesn't kill. No, because in the normal cut, they fall over their deaths into the thing.
Well, I mean, I guess the one guy does. So, I mean, I don't know. It was just something that I noticed. I don't know if it's relevant, though. You know what I mean?
I'm just saying, that's the reason I got to think for the Donner cut is because that way, it was a cheap way to undo everything, real quick. And it was in line with the hokey superpowers that Superman had. The dude was pulling planets on a big giant chain links to actually planets. Just pulling them through a solar system in some of those early books.
Really?
Yeah, so it wasn't really a stretch for him to do this.
Boy.
I know. That's why I like Post Crisis, which is basically from 1986 and up to 1999, or actually right around 2005 or something. I think it's anyway.
Getting overpowered is
but
never the answer.
Yeah. So, but I want to point out though, for those who are a fan of the Christopher Reeve Superman version, they're actually Robert Venditti is continuing his actual Superman 78 series based on the Christopher Reeve universe. Yeah, so he's reintroducing new characters. He just brought in a new character called, not new, but I mean like it's their version of Metallo, and kind of made it into a Cold War thing, kind of thing, keeping in line what would it look like basically if it was in Christopher Reeve's universe. It kept going and introducing some of these villains in. So that's something really cool they've been doing with that. They even in this the second volume, the first issue, they addressed that this is the Superman that basically did the kiss to Lois Lane. And that's why she can't remember. One of the issues, he actually brings her into the Fortress of Solitude, and she gets to meet his parents, who are in the small little body of Kandor, Bottle City. So I thought that was kind of cool, But so if you're looking for the comic book stuff, you like the Superman stuff. There's that. There's even Star Wars comics, but I would say if you're getting Star Wars comics, get the Dark Horse comic books. Avoid Marvel unless you're getting early Marvel, late 80s, early 90s stuff. It's basically the comic book adaptions of Star Wars stuff. But
yeah, and I'm ignorant when it comes to that stuff. I'm not going to pretend to really know that stuff very well. So, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the movie and all that, some people may bring that knowledge to the table, and that may affect the way they view, Star Wars or this, that, or something that's based off of a book. But it's hard to say. I try not to hold that against it necessarily because I'm watching it as a movie. Like Fletch. Fletch is a great movie to me. It's not quite exactly, the book or what happens or in order and stuff, but it's a book is not a movie. And
it's something for a lot of us wanted more Christopher Reeve Superman, so we're getting new stories with Christopher Reeve's version, and
right.
they draw the characters looking damn well, looking like them. They even got Jackie Cooper, exactly spot on. Margaret Kidder, same thing with Christopher Reeve, the actions, all that stuff. I love it.
Right.
So if you're a fan of these properties, there actually is comic books where you can actually are worth reading.
Let's talk about some of the really bad Superman too, and I'm gonna go back to Margot Kidder, because I said she's not ugly, she's not hot, but she looks like a woman. She's dressed well, she's kind of cute. She's a professional working woman, and that's where it was very feminist at the time. Feminine still, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
obviously that's changed. But here's the thing: I'm not talking about her or the character or the acting. I'm talking about what happens to her, because when he kisses her and takes away that to spare her the pain, it's like, hey, fuck you, bro. She really loved you. And you even loved her so much you sacrificed being immortal and a freaking god. You kind of pushed out on a lifetime of happiness with this woman because you felt like you had this higher purpose, and yet you just couldn't leave it at that. Let her know that, keep that secret. No, you had to make her forget about it so she would not understand how happy she was. And like she says, like any woman would say, hey, if I've had Superman, how can I, basically be with a normal guy? And you can take that all the way down to an Insta thought or all these hopefully
I don't
and stuff, but she's got a point. She goes, when I've got the best, which happens to be you, I don't want anybody else. And he takes it away from her. And even though they have that cute little fight thing at the end, I'm like, fuck, that's pretty goddamn dark. Who are you to decide whether somebody's allowed to feel what they feel and their happiness or their sadness or whatever? It's really they don't linger on it, but it's there.
Like I said, I'm reading the comic book, which is a continuation of that. So I'm hoping that plot point comes to the point where she does get her memories back, and I just want to see the drama from that, But what a super dick move. And that is part of the super dickery that was back in the day too. But I don't know which is worse, like doing that to her. That's really this because he decided she can't handle it, and he doesn't know if he can either protect her because the enemies find out that he's dating a woman.
I get it,
bro.
But see that conflict. That's what's good about this film. Even though we're talking about the bad, is that you're exploring what it means for him to deal with that, because he's not human.
No.
right? He can't produce. I don't know if that's actually talked about in film. I don't
Well,
know at all. So he's
that's
basically this guy that comes and moves her and this and that, but yet really can't give her what she really wants or needs. And I understand it. Like Jay saying, it's a a mercy thing. Am I way overthinking it, Jay? We're just talking here. We're just bullshitting. I mean, it's everyone's got their
yeah.
own opinion, right? Yeah, I do think it's dark because from the woman's perspective, when you meet Mr. Right and then you can't have him, what have you got? You gonna
You know
settle
what?
and be happy about it?
Do you know what I think it was? I think it was that the studio's chicking it out on having a third movie with her actually knowing that he's Superman. I think it was a last minute decision from the studios. They're like, nope, can't do this.
Well,
If
you
it was a
watched the
plot,
Donner cut, right?
I watched the Donner cut. Instead of doing the kill kiss thing, he decided to fly back and change everything. Basically, like the whole movie didn't happen whatsoever. So instead of like the point where you see them breaking out of the Phantom Zone, the in space coming down, they're all rewinded back up and they're stuck back in there, and it's launched back the other direction using his superpowers. He's able to do that,
I hate to say it, but
and
I'll look
that
at
was dumb
Superman
too.
and say it doesn't work like that, bro. Even though you're Superman, it doesn't work like that. You can't just do it.
Yeah, I know,
Well,
but it's
that would take away from it a little
and
bit.
it was cheap. That was even more cheap for me as far as that in a sense, because the fact it's like, oh, what was the point of watching the movie? You're just gonna do everything.
Yeah.
You
You may
know,
have something there about her as far as being the third film because, like we'd mentioned earlier in chat about these being filmed pretty much back to back, but then there being a bunch of scenes that have been recut and cast. The editing is really bad, and
yep.
some scenes in here you can really tell. And I guess one little comment I just had read about them
Okay.
going back and forth with the editing is that some actors wanted to stay, some didn't. So like whenever you see the back of Gene Hackman's head, it's not really him. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, I can see why there would be another cut now of the restored stuff there too. And it
Yeah.
really honestly wasn't until maybe like the late 80s, early 90s, especially when DVDs came out, that you would see like an alternate ending, or like with Halloween, for example, there's one or two scenes there that were always cut, never really in the movie, or once in a while they might slip and be on broadcast TV. And so you're like, oh, there's more to it than what you see, other than the graphic stuff or the adult content taken out, meaning nudity. But if you saw it like on HBO at night, there'd
Yeah.
be two versions.
You
There'd
saw
be the
everything.
clean one and then a dirty one, right? So yeah, it's yeah, Jay, maybe we're over analyzing it here, but that's kind of the whole point. Is
Well,
we're talking about the good and the bad of both to see which one's
yeah,
the better film.
and one last thing, Ronnie is pointing out too. They didn't want having a baby out of wedlock. They had sex. I was married. They were still
But
big.
he's sterile. He doesn't
Yeah.
have human
Well,
DNA.
no, because remember he turned himself human and had sex with her.
Yeah, I just again I don't know how that works.
So obviously, like she said, if she follows up on her thing, she says, it happened in Superman Returns because we find out that's not supposed to be a continuation of the Christopher Reeve stuff movies, where she's pregnant. He's been gone for 5 years. All of a sudden she has. Well, I don't know if you can say it's officially technically connected, but some fans think it is. And if I'm wrong, because I don't watch a lot of
Superman
interviews.
dumped her, so
Yeah,
she went out with the chat.
yeah.
Well, you know who she would have banged, right? She would have went back to that diner and won that guy as a revenge fuck. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now
so
we're
it says
overthinking it.
Clark going back to Revenge on Rocky is dark and out of character. Like he's just trying to feel like, yeah, I'm gonna one up, because this
He's a
guy
bit of an
embarrassed me.
ass.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Super dickery though. This is the 70s, or at least 1980 now. So like I said, I like both movies. They both have some have flaws more than the others, but it all depends on what you think a flaw is.
Yeah.
And what you think is a pro. I like both movies. I can watch both of them any day. They're both classics. Now, the one thing that breaks apart these movies is the budgets. Obviously, Empire Strikes Back made way much more money written back than Superman 2 did.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman 2 had a nice hefty budget as well, but didn't get enough of a box after return compared to Empire Strikes Back, which everybody you can say Superman in the movie theater sense, the cult wasn't as strong as the Star Wars cult.
Oh God, no.
No.
Star Wars had the kids.
Yep. So
I mean, and Superman's nice, but I'm gonna be blunt. in the 70s, if you read comic books, you were a child, you were a kid, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It became a lot more, especially in the 80s. And again, let's go back to pop culture at the time. You weren't around then, but you started to have TV shows like Spider-Man, like The Incredible Hulk. You started having this crossover appeal
Yeah.
for content that would make it, and of course, really explode in the 90s, right? Especially
Mhm.
later 90s. So it became more acceptable, permissible, because even then, TV was written very well in the 70s, and movies, you definitely had this decline of quality of the writing. I'm not saying necessarily the filmmaking itself, but of what you had. And so at the time, the special effects were really great in both. I think if we talk in terms of special effects, I think it's hands down, it's Empire Strikes Back, no question about it. This is a tough one for me because I think Superman 2 is more of a fun film, and enjoyable.
Yep.
And I definitely remember more scenes about it. It resonates more with me because I think of the struggle of the human part, whereas
You even had,
intellectually, I go Empire Strikes Back. I see what they're trying to do with it, but I think that it's a question of negatives. I think Luke is that much of a negative, even in this film here. I'm going to have to pick Superman 2 as the better of the two films.
and looking at the poster underneath Superman, there's the Twin Towers. Something you're never gonna see again on a movie cover poster.
Unless you're watching Escape from New York, baby.
Right, yeah. Like I said, I do like Superman 2 a little better. I mean, but I haven't seen Star Wars in a while. I've seen Superman 2 about in the past couple of years, so I haven't seen Empire Strikes Back since like early 2000s.
If you had
So,
to pick which one of these two films to watch, though, what would it be?
man, it's
I
tough.
would have to take
I
Superman
love
2.
both. I love Yoda, and I love Superman 2, the whole thing, the diner scene, all the stuff.
Yeah.
Gene Hackman as the greatest criminal mind, Lex Luthor.
Otis Berg.
It's hard. Honestly, I'm torn. I like both. And I know it's a cop out.
You got to nut up, bro. Just like everybody in
It's
here's got
cop
to
out.
pick.
My pick will change depending on what I'm feeling like watching.
God. Oh, man. Come on, bro. Two movies
Uh,
enter, one leaves. For me, it's
all
Superman
right,
2.
all right. If I had to pick right now at this moment, without based on facts and not on feelings, because no one cares about your feelings. Superman 2.
But it's
I know
close.
it is close. I know.
Yeah.
It's and maybe it's because as Jay said, I'm burned out on it. Love
That's a
Vampire
good
stuff.
way of describing it,
Because
isn't it?
I think it's with Star Wars fatigue as far as everything they're doing to the franchise right now. It puts a sour taste in your mouth. It's like, but these are still phenomenal movies. Star Wars.
They are.
I call them Harrison Ford Wars. That's what it is. because he's the only star in that. But yeah, Superman 2, man. I go with that. Even though it's the underdog in this battle. Well, someone would say I'd say Superman 2, but
I want
but
to see
that
what
being
everybody's
said,
saying in chat. Put in which one you think survives,
yeah,
guys, gals. I got to say this. Like I say, I have no problem expressing my opinion about something good or bad. What's good versus what I like isn't always the same, and that's just how it is. And that's why we talk all these things. I like to say 3 different generations of opinions here on the Xtreme Movie Show, and of course we do TV. And so it still boggles my mind because I think the whole fatigue thing is being burned out is such a chord. I want to try not to use that as a negative. But it's like, okay, Empire, been there, done that, get it, understood it, own it. If I put it on, I'm like, yeah, okay. Intellectually, I see what's going on, but there's just something where it's not moving me emotionally like I can get in a couple of scenes. I think it's better. And Superman 2 probably is a little bit better to me in a sense because it really does focus on trying to be human and the struggle that he has with it. And that's more interesting to me than I Am Your Father. Okay,
yep,
that's great, Daddy. Okay, I mean, all right, now what? Okay, you've got your surprise, and now what? But damn, it looks good. And honestly,
yes,
I am not a Star Wars fan at all.
and
I make fun of Star Wars nerds. I like to have fun doing it, and it was always fun to do it before everybody got butt hurt and nobody really cared. But it really is the best film out of all 9, 10, 12, 20, whatever the hell they have in all the TV shows. It's not even close. It really is a great
yeah,
film. But for me, I got to
yeah.
say Superman 2
Yeah,
comes out the
except
winner.
I'm trying not to be biased because I'm a huge Superman fan as far as all stuff. So Christopher Reeve stuff, but the music on there, everything, it's just to me, it's much more positive. It's in a sense compared to everything that's going on. It's like they're fighting a war, and he's just like, just trying to be, he's a one.
Just trying to get a little
Get a
straight,
little something. Yeah,
guys.
get a little something.
Yeah, man, this being an adult male is difficult. All these decisions I have to make.
Getting Kryptonian complot.
I take her to my mansion. I feed her a little bit, give her some champagne. We got the big round silk waterbed.
And then he kisses her and she forgets.
And it's like, man, all right, screw this. I'll just go back to the simpler life and play video games and beat up bad guys.
Life was better when I was a farmer. All right, he's planting seeds and gonna take.
All right, and what's coming up with you this week?
Well, in a few minutes, I'll be going live over on the Kiki Puppet Show, talking about the top 5 comic books coming out this week that I think are going to be the most favorite for me, most anticipated. I should be joined by Zach, unless he's late. But that being said, I hope you guys had fun here. And we'll be doing this, as at least once a week, man.
Yeah, we're do it for a couple months generally. For those of you who just joined in here, what I want to say at the beginning still holds is that Sunday night when we go live, we're going to be doing top 10 films of 1980. Of course, the American releases and not the 10 highest grossing or whatever. We're going to come up with a list of 10 movies and talk about them. We're going to go back to our roots about what we like to do. And that's why I wanted to preview some movies from like 1980. And then we're going to do the same thing the week after. Next Tuesday, we'll be doing 2 films just like this, where we're going to debate the good and bad and pick a winner out of them from 1981. And then that Sunday following, we'll be doing 10 films from 1981. We're going to go through the 80s and then kind of reset a little bit and see what's going on too. Thursday night, the next group of Mission Impossible episodes are going to drop.
7 p.m. Central. Check that out.
Yeah.
And,
anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Movie Thunderdome, our debut episode. Superman 2 beats Empire Strikes Back. Whammy. Have a good night, guys. As always, stay extreme. Good night.
Good night now.
You want to beat me to it.